Stonehenge, the prehistoric monument on the Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England, constructed from 3000 BC to 2000 BC of stones weighing up to 25 tons. One of the most famous landmarks not only in England, but in the world.
Yes, that's Stonehenge. One day in 1915, a man bought it at an auction. You heard right, he bought it at an auction. And his wife was pretty ticked about it.
Let's dig into this. So a little background is needed here, I think. Stonehenge has been the subject of intense scientific study for many years. It seems the Salisbury Plain was an important place for people for centuries, although we really don't know why. It could be because the area is part of the Chalk Plateau, which covers around 300 square miles in southern England and extends all the way to the famous chalk cliffs of the coast, including the amazing White Cliffs of Dover, the Seven Sisters, and many others.
The open plain may have made it attractive too. The area seems to have been popular for religious ceremonies and festivals. It seemed to be a place of ancient burials, for celebrating the solstice, and observing the skies.
The Stonehenge we know today may not be what you think. We think of random huge stones just kind of placed in a circle. Stonehenge is actually quite different and way older than many of us realize. The beginnings of Stonehenge we are familiar with are dated from about 8000 BC, when 4 or 5 post holes were dug to hold poles around 2.5 feet in diameter. Their use is not known. From around 4000 BC to 3000 BC, the area was used off and on for a variety of purposes, with ditches and banks being built and pits being dug. Cremated human remains and animal bones have been found and dated to this period.
Between 2900 and 2600 BC, more post holes were dug, possibly for a timber structure. And then from 2600 BC to 2400 BC, the enormous stones were brought to the site from a quarry about 16 miles away. 30 standing stones and about 13 feet high, 7 feet wide, and 3.5 feet thick were placed 3 feet apart in a 108-foot circle. The 30 top stones, called lintel stones, were about 10 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 2.5 feet thick. They have been worked to have both tongue and groove joints to attach to each other, and mortise and tenon joints to hold them on top of the standing stones. It is about 16 feet from the ground to the top of the lintel stone.
Inside this circle is a smaller circle of 10 larger stones weighing up to 50 tons each. These stones were worked and joined together with 5 lintel stones, but only one is still standing. These stones have many ancient carvings and may have been partly dug into the ground. The stone still standing is 22 feet above ground, with another nearly 8 feet buried. These stones were arranged by height, from 20 feet tall to 25 feet tall. Evidence of animal slaughter has been found in the area. These stone circles are what we instantly recognize as Stonehenge today.
There's far too much history, myth, and legend of the area to go into detail here, but the site has attracted visitors since the Middle Ages. Stonehenge was part of a nearby Benedictine monastery until King Henry VIII confiscated it around 1540. It has been in private ownership since then, changing hands several times. Over the many centuries it has survived wind and weather, but time has taken its toll with the stones falling or tipping. Visitors have taken their toll too, carving into the stone or chipping off pieces. Starting in the 1880s, timbers were used to prop up some of the stones, and in 1900 one of the surviving lintel stones snapped into two when the upright stone under it fell.
By the early 1800s, Stonehenge was owned by the ATTRIBUTION family. They put a fence around the site and charged 1 shilling admittance. using the proceeds to pay for protection and maintenance of the property. They also banned the Druids from holding their yearly solstice festival at the site, resulting in a curse being placed on the family. A year or so later, the heir to the property was killed in one of the early battles of World War I, and just a few months after that, ATTRIBUTION died as well. Eventually, the entire estate was divided up and sold in parts at auction, and this is where our hero, Cecil Chubb, comes into the picture.
Cecil Chubb was a barrister, or lawyer, who'd grown up in the area. His wife, Mary, had received a legacy. Essentially, she was a beneficiary of someone's will, and reportedly received £100,000 in 1905. In 2018, that's the equivalent of somewhere around £8 million. They were a very well-to-do family.
On September 21st, 1915, an auction was to be held at the Palace Theatre in Salisbury. Mrs. Chubb wanted a new dining room set and sent her husband expressly to the auction to buy dining room chairs. But an interesting and unusual item came up for bids, and Cecil Chubb was intrigued.
The opening bid for auction lot 15, which included Stonehenge and some surrounding property, began at £5,000. It increased in £100 increments until the last bid, £6,600 by Cecil Chubb. The auctioneer declared lot 15 sold, and Cecil Chubb owned Stonehenge, at a cost in today's money of approximately $1.1 million.
Apparently, Cecil forgot that Mrs. Chubb wanted dining room chairs. He returned home without them, and Mrs. Chubb was reportedly none too pleased with Mr. Chubb for a while.
Cecil, on the other hand, was apparently quite pleased. He said he bought Stonehenge on impulse, having grown up visiting the site often when he was a kid. He originally intended for the site to remain in his family, as it had done in other families, for generations. But he said he realized over time, maybe with the help of Mrs. Chubb, that the nation of Britain would like to have the monument as its own.
In October of 1918, Cecil and Mary Chubb gifted Stonehenge to the British nation. Cecil Chubb stipulated in this gift that those who lived near Stonehenge should always be free to visit without cost. In return for this astounding gift to his country, he was given a title and made the first baronet of Stonehenge. From that time on, he was known as Sir Cecil Chubb, and his wife was Lady Chubb.
Sir Cecil died in 1934 at the young age of 58. He is not forgotten all these years later. It is estimated that out of the approximately 1.3 million Stonehenge visitors every year, about 30,000 pay no admission thanks to Sir Cecil's gift.
Stonehenge is a World Heritage Site and is cared for by English heritage staff and volunteers. It has undergone extensive restoration, preservation, and expansion that may never have happened without the Chubb's generosity.
English heritage staff and volunteers left a card on Sir Cecil's grave in 2018, the centennial of the amazing donation made by the man who was sent to an auction for dining chairs and came home with a national monument.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And leave us a comment. And hey, if you enjoyed this video, why don't you go and take a look at some of our other videos we've done.